What if the most powerful thing your body needs to fight cancer has been sitting in your grocery store this entire time? Not behind a prescription counter, not inside an expensive supplement, on a shelf, in a spice aisle, probably within 5 miles of where you are sitting right now. You have walked past it hundreds of times without knowing what it carries inside. There is a compound locked inside this seed. Researchers have been studying it for over 4 decades, and the results they keep finding are genuinely difficult to ignore. This molecule triggered a 300% increase in stem cells, the very cells responsible for rebuilding your blood, your immune system, and your organs. In a completely separate line of research, that same molecule cut off a tumor's blood supply. It placed cancer cells on targeted starvation without harming a single healthy cell around them. That is not marketing language. That is the documented language of peer-reviewed pharmacology published in respected scientific journals. Before we go any further, I want to be clear about something important. I am not asking you to abandon your doctor or distrust medicine. What I am going to do is show you specific studies, exact mechanisms, precise protocols, and documented results. Then I will let you form your own conclusions based on real evidence. Most people fighting for their health are not getting complete information. You deserve better than that. So stay with me, because what follows matters deeply. Let me start with the question every intelligent person asks when they hear something like this. If this is real, why haven't I heard about it from my doctor? It is the right question, and it deserves a real answer, not a dismissive one. The answer has 2 parts. The first part is financial. A seed cannot be patented. When researchers began publishing serious data on this seed's active compound, pharmaceutical companies faced an uncomfortable reality. There was no way to own it. No way to build a profitable pipeline around something that grows in fields across Southwest Asia and costs almost nothing per kilogram. Without the incentive of financial return, large-scale clinical trials never get funded. Without those trials, a compound cannot enter mainstream treatment guidelines. Without guidelines, physicians do not recommend it. That is not a conspiracy. That is simply the economics of drug development. And those economics have real consequences for patients every single day. The second part of the answer is cultural. This seed has a recorded medical history stretching back 300 years. It was found in the tomb of Tutankhamun. It appears in ancient Islamic medicine, in Ayurvedic texts, and in Greco-Roman pharmacopoeias. For much of modern medicine's history, that ancient pedigree actually worked against it. When something has been used as folk medicine for 3,000 years, the default scientific response is skepticism. Traditional remedies get treated as placebo candidates until proven otherwise. That cultural bias slowed serious investigation by decades. What changed was not a shift in attitude. It was the sheer weight of evidence becoming too significant to keep ignoring. Over 2,000 peer-reviewed studies now exist, published in journals including Oncotarget, Cancer Letters, Phytomedicine, and the Journal of Ethnopharmacology. Across 19 different cancer types, across multiple countries, multiple research institutions, multiple independent teams arriving at the same overlapping conclusions. At some point, the data simply stops being easy to dismiss. I am a physician trained in emergency medicine with a background in cancer biology research. I have spent nearly a decade watching something that medical school does not prepare you for. I kept seeing outliers. Patients who by every clinical measure should have been losing their fight with disease. But they were not losing. They were outliving their prognosis. Not because of an experimental drug. Not because of a surgical breakthrough. Because of something quiet and deliberate they were doing at home every single day. When I started asking these patients what they were doing differently, I kept hearing similar answers. Anti-inflammatory foods. Specific compounds. Daily habits built around what they were putting in their bodies, and one of the most consistent things I encountered, across patients with completely different diagnoses and backgrounds, was this one seed. I had not learned about it in medical school. I found it by following a pattern until the pattern demanded attention. That is what this is about. Not anecdote. Not hope dressed as science. The actual science, presented with enough specificity that you can verify every piece of it yourself. The seed is called Nigella sativa. You may know it as black seed, black cumin, or kalonji, depending on where you grew up. It is small, jet black, roughly the size of a sesame seed. It grows on a flowering plant native to Southwest Asia and the Mediterranean. Ancient Egyptian physicians prescribed it for respiratory failure and digestive collapse. It appears in the Hebrew Bible. One of the most cited hadiths in Islamic tradition records that black seed is a remedy for every disease except death. For centuries, that statement was treated as religious expression. Modern pharmacology is now examining it with considerably more scientific respect. In Ayurvedic medicine, it was called Habatus Sauda and used specifically to rebuild immune function following serious illness. But the history, remarkable as it is not why we are here today. We are here because of what happens in a controlled laboratory when you isolate the primary bioactive compound in this seed. That compound is called thymoquinone. When thymoquinone is introduced to human cancer cell lines, to human bone marrow cultures, to animal tumor models, and increasingly to actual human patients, the results are not what you expect from something costing a few dollars. Before I walk you through the mechanisms, I need to make sure you understand what is actually at stake biologically. Stem cells are not a luxury feature your body maintains. They are your entire repair department. Every time your liver is stressed by a toxin, stem cells begin the rebuilding process. Every time your gut lining is damaged, intestinal stem cells renew it. Every time your immune system needs fresh white blood cells to fight infection or scan for abnormal cell growth, hematopoietic stem cells in your bone marrow do that manufacturing work. These are not passive background processes. They are the ongoing biological negotiation between your body and the damage life continuously causes. Here is what most people have never been clearly told. Beginning in your mid-30s, your stem cell pools start declining. Gradually. Consistently. Without announcement. By the time you reach 60, your hematopoietic stem cell activity may be functioning at a fraction of its capacity compared to when you were 25 years old. Think about what that actually means in practical terms. The construction crews responsible for maintaining your biological infrastructure are shrinking in number every single year. The repairs that once happened seamlessly, the micro damage your body fixed before you ever noticed it, starts accumulating quietly. Over years and decades, that accumulation becomes what we diagnose as chronic disease, organ decline, and immune dysfunction. This is the context in which thymoquinone's effect on stem cells becomes genuinely significant. A landmark study published in Phytomedicine examined hematopoietic stem cell populations in human bone marrow cultures treated with thymoquinone. Researchers used flow cytometry, a technique precise enough to count individual cell populations at the molecular level. What they found was remarkable even by the standards of people in this field. Stem cell colonies expressing the CD34 positive marker, the identifier for undifferentiated stem cells with full regenerative potential, increased by approximately 300% compared to untreated controls. 300%. In a controlled, quantified, peer-reviewed laboratory setting. Not a marketing estimate, a measured scientific result. But here's what elevates this beyond a simple proliferation number. The new stem cells were not just more numerous. They were showing reduced markers of senescence. That means the cells being generated were younger in biological function, less damaged, more capable of differentiating into the specialized cells your organs actually need. You were not just getting more aging cells. You were getting a biologically younger population of cells being produced. That distinction matters enormously for long-term health outcomes. The mechanisms behind this operate through two distinct pathways. The first involves CXCL12 and CXCR4 signaling. Your bone marrow broadcasts a chemical distress signal through the bloodstream called CXCL12 whenever tissue repair is needed. Stem cells that can respond to this signal carry a surface receptor called CXCR4, which functions as the antenna for that broadcast. Thymoquinone has been shown to upregulate CXCR4 expression on stem cell surfaces. In practical terms, it upgrades the antenna. The cells become more sensitive to the body's repair signals. They mobilize faster and in greater numbers. A slow volunteer response becomes a fully coordinated professional operation. The second pathway is NRF2 activation. NRF2 is the master switch of your cellular antioxidant defense system. When it is activated, it triggers production of glutathione, superoxide dismutase, and catalase. These compounds protect stem cells from oxidative damage during replication, which is one of the primary reasons stem cell function declines with age. Thymoquinone is one of the most potent natural NRF2 activators in published research. It essentially gives each stem cell a full set of protective equipment before sending it into the repair process. The cells survive longer and function more accurately as a result. Now I want to talk about cancer, specifically about what cancer actually requires to survive and grow, because that understanding is what makes thymoquinone's anti-cancer mechanisms so precise. Cancer is not simply cells multiplying too fast. It is cells that have learned to cheat the specific biological systems your body built to contain them. And those strategies are documented and increasingly well understood. Thymoquinone targets 3 of those strategies directly. The first is anti-angiogenesis, which means cutting off the blood supply that cancer depends on entirely. A solid tumor cannot grow beyond approximately 2 millimeters in diameter without establishing its own blood supply. That is roughly the size of a pencil tip. Beyond that size, tumor cells cannot receive the oxygen and nutrients they need. So cancer hijacks your body's own blood vessel construction system. It secretes a chemical signal called VEGF, vascular endothelial growth factor, which commands nearby cells to grow new blood vessels toward the tumor. With those vessels, a microscopic tumor can expand to a life-threatening mass within weeks. Without them, it stays contained at pencil tip size indefinitely. Thymoquinone significantly inhibits VEGF expression in multiple cell and animal studies. It does this by suppressing HIF-1 a transcription factor cancer uses to trigger VEGF secretion when oxygen inside the tumor drops low. Thymoquinone intercepts the construction order before new vessels can even begin forming. The tumor cannot call for reinforcements because the call never gets through. The second pathway thymoquinone targets is selective apoptosis, which means reactivating cancer's own self-destruct sequence. Every healthy cell in your body carries a built-in program for self-termination called apoptosis. When a cell accumulates too much damage or begins behaving abnormally, apoptosis is supposed to trigger and eliminate it cleanly. Cancer cells are cells that have learned to disable this switch. It is one of the primary ways they achieve the near immortality that makes them so dangerous to treat. Thymoquinone appears to reactivate apoptosis, specifically in malignant cells, through 2 molecular routes. It upregulates p53, often called the guardian of the genome, which monitors cellular damage and initiates self-destruction when damage is critical. It also activates the Caspase cascade, the molecular execution sequence that carries out programmed cell death once p53 has signaled the order. In multiple comparative studies, cancer cells and healthy cells received identical concentrations of thymoquinone. The cancer cells showed dramatically elevated death rates. The healthy cells remained largely unaffected. Pharmacologists describe this level of selectivity as genuinely unusual for any naturally occurring molecule. The third pathway is NF-kappa B suppression, which strips cancer of the inflammatory camouflage it uses to hide from your immune system. If there is one environment cancer exploits above all others, it is chronic inflammation. Tumors actively cultivate inflammatory conditions around themselves using a signaling protein called NF-kappa B. This protein functions essentially as cancer's propaganda broadcast to your immune system. It tells your immune surveillance cells that everything in this area is normal. Nothing suspicious, no threat present, move along. It is one of the primary reasons cancer can grow in the body for years without triggering an immune response that would otherwise identify and destroy it. Thymoquinone is one of the most potent natural NF-kappa B inhibitors identified in published research. When it dampens that signal in tumor tissue, the camouflage is removed. The immune cells that were being waved past suddenly encounter something that reads as foreign, abnormal, and a legitimate threat. The immune surveillance that was being deceived regains its full sight. These mechanisms are not theoretical. They are supported by specific studies I want to walk you through with enough detail that you can find and read every single one yourself. Study 1. University of Mississippi Medical Center, published in Cancer Letters. Researchers treated 3 separate human pancreatic cancer cell lines with thymoquinone. Pancreatic cancer is specifically chosen in research because it is among the most chemotherapy-resistant cancers known. Within 72 hours, cancer cell proliferation decreased by over 80% compared to untreated controls. In tumor xenograft models where human cancer cells were implanted in mice, subjects treated with thymoquinone showed a 55% reduction in tumor volume over 4 weeks. Study 2. King Abdulaziz University in Saudi Arabia, published in Phytomedicine. In controlled human bone marrow cell cultures, thymoquinone at 10 micromoles produced a 2.9 to 3. One-fold increase in CD34 positive stem cell colonies over 14 days compared to untreated controls. Flow cytometry was used to quantify every population change. This is the foundational research behind the 300% regeneration figure. It is reproducible and directly verifiable in the published literature. Study 3. Cairo University, Egypt, 40 patients, published in Phytotherapy Research. This involved real human patients, not cell cultures, not animal models. 40 individuals with early-stage colorectal cancer already receiving standard oncology treatment. They were randomized to receive either 2 grams of thymoquinone standardized black seed oil daily or a placebo alongside their existing protocol. After 12 weeks, the thymoquinone group showed significantly lower serum VEGF levels, reduced CARP and IL-6 inflammatory markers, and improved CD4 positive CD8 positive T cell ratios. Study 4. University of Heidelberg, Germany, published in Oncotarget. A molecular biology study examining thymoquinone's effect on NF-kappa B in breast cancer cell lines found complete suppression at concentrations achievable through dietary supplementation. The researchers described thymoquinone as pharmacologically comparable to synthetic NF-kappa B inhibitors currently in clinical development, but without the associated toxicity that makes those synthetic versions so difficult to use. Study 5. National Institutes of Health Systematic Review, published in Evidence-Based Complementary and Alternative Medicine. A review of 133 published studies on Nigella sativa concluded that thymoquinone demonstrated anti-cancer activity across 19 different cancer types. The authors explicitly called for escalated funding of Phase 2 and Phase 3 human clinical trials, not because the evidence was weak, because it was strong enough to demand the next level of clinical investigation. Now I want to give you something practical. Information that does not translate into action is just very well organized anxiety. Here is the protocol based on the available evidence. Cold-pressed black seed oil, 1 teaspoon twice daily. This is the most concentrated delivery form for thymoquinone. Cold-pressed unrefined oil contains between 0.5 and 1.5% thymoquinone by weight. Take it directly, without heating it. The ideal timing is 1 teaspoon with your first meal and 1 teaspoon with your last meal. Take it alongside fat-containing food. Olive oil, avocado, eggs, or nuts. Thymoquinone is lipophilic and requires dietary fat for proper absorption into circulation. Without fat present, a significant portion of the compound passes through without being absorbed. A glass of warm water with fresh lemon juice afterward supports gastric absorption and makes it easier to take. Whole black seeds, 1 gram daily, lightly crushed. Purchase organic Nigella sativa seeds and use a mortar and pestle to lightly crack them before consuming. The outer seed coat limits bioavailability significantly. Cracking it before eating changes the absorption picture dramatically. Approximately 1/3 of a teaspoon of cracked seeds equals roughly 1 gram. Add them to full-fat yogurt, scrambled eggs, or any fat-containing food. Black seed combined with raw honey in the morning. Multiple published studies have examined the synergistic interaction between thymoquinone and methylglyoxal, the primary bioactive compound in raw, unprocessed honey. When combined, these two compounds produce cooperative anti-inflammatory and antioxidant activity exceeding either taken alone, not additively, but synergistically. Half a teaspoon of black seed oil stirred into 1 teaspoon of raw honey before your first meal is a clinically referenced combination. Standardized black seed extract capsules, 500 milligrams twice daily. For those who find the taste genuinely prohibitive, standardized capsule extracts are a valid pharmacological alternative. Look specifically for products stating thymoquinone concentration on the label at minimum 1%. Products without standardization may contain negligible amounts of the active compound regardless of what the label says. Generic black seed capsules without stated thymoquinone content are not a substitute. Whole seeds in cooking, 3 to 5 times weekly. Dry toast whole black seeds in a pan for approximately 90 seconds and add to roasted vegetables, grain dishes, lentils, or hummus. This provides fiber, phytosterols, and a small heat-stable amount of thymoquinone. This is not your primary therapeutic dose. It is a daily reinforcement habit that builds consistency over time and integrates the seed naturally into your eating routine. Combined with cruciferous vegetables for amplified anti-cancer synergy. Research from the University of Pennsylvania identified a synergistic interaction between thymoquinone and sulforaphane, the anti-cancer compound in broccoli, cauliflower, and Brussels sprouts. When both compounds are present simultaneously, the apoptotic effect on cancer cell lines was approximately 70% stronger than either compound alone. 3 to 4 nights per week, pair your black seed oil protocol with 1 cup of lightly steamed broccoli. Steam it for exactly 3 to 4 minutes. This specific duration preserves the myrosinase enzyme that converts glucoraphanin into active sulforaphane. Do not microwave it. Do not boil it. Steam only, briefly, and serve while it still has a slight firmness. There are 4 things most articles on this topic will never tell you, and they matter more than most people realize. Quality determines everything. Thymoquinone degrades rapidly with heat, light, and oxygen exposure. An oil stored in a clear plastic bottle on a warm shelf may have lost most of its active compound before you ever open it. Look for cold-pressed, unrefined, stored in dark glass with a harvest date clearly printed. When you open it, it should smell sharp and pungent, almost medicinal with slight heat. If it smells dusty or stale, the thymoquinone has oxidized. Refrigerate immediately after opening. Consistency over 90 days is what the research is actually measuring. The Cairo University human trial showing reduced veg levels ran for 12 full weeks. The stem cell culture data was measured at 14 days in a controlled laboratory environment. In a living human body, navigating daily life, stress, and imperfect diet, the timeline for measurable cellular change is longer. Commit to 90 days of daily consistent use before forming any judgment. This is infrastructure work, not a quick fix. Black pepper meaningfully extends thymoquinone's active time in your bloodstream. Piperine, the compound responsible for black pepper's heat, inhibits certain liver enzymes that rapidly metabolize thymoquinone before it reaches full systemic circulation. Adding 1/4 teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper to a meal taken alongside your black seed oil can significantly extend thymoquinone's half-life. This is the same pharmacokinetic principle behind the well-documented curcumin and piperine synergy in turmeric research. Intermittent fasting creates a compounding effect when timed correctly with black seed oil. Both thymoquinone and intermittent fasting have been independently studied as activators of autophagy, the cellular cleanup process that precedes stem cell mobilization. When you complete a 14 to 16-hour fasting window and then take black seed oil as your first nutritional input, you are introducing thymoquinone into a cellular environment primed and cleared for regenerative processes. Consider this timing if you already practice time-restricted eating. Because credible health information requires complete information, here is who should consult a physician before beginning this protocol. Pregnant women. Thymoquinone has demonstrated uterine contracting activity in animal studies. This is a firm contraindication, not a contextual one. Anyone on blood-thinning medications. Thymoquinone has mild platelet-inhibiting properties. If you take warfarin, aspirin therapy, or any direct oral anticoagulant, discuss this with your prescribing physician before starting. People with low blood pressure. Black seed oil has demonstrated a modest blood pressure lowering effect in clinical trials. For those already trending toward hypotension, this effect can compound in ways that require physician oversight. Anyone undergoing active chemotherapy or targeted therapy. This is the most critical item on this list. Anyone in active cancer treatment must have a specific conversation with their oncologist before adding any bioactive compound to their regimen. Some combinations may be beneficial, others may affect drug metabolism. Do not assume safety without that conversation. For healthy adults seeking preventive support, the evidence is robust, the safety profile is strong across millennia of traditional use and thousands of modern studies, and the barrier to entry in cost and effort is genuinely minimal. 4 mistakes that consistently undermine the results people get from this protocol. Buying the wrong product. Most people purchase whatever ranks highest online without ever looking at thymoquinone content. A product can be legally labeled black seed oil while containing virtually no active compound. Look for stated thymoquinone percentage on the label. Minimum 0.5%. Ideally 1% or above. Third-party tested products with a certificate of analysis are worth the modest price difference. Expecting results in 2 weeks. I have spoken with people who tried black seed oil for 10 days, noticed nothing, and stopped. 2 weeks is not enough time for measurable cellular changes in a living human body. The Cairo University trial ran 12 weeks. Commit to 90 days minimum. Treating it as a singular solution. Black seed oil amplifies a foundation. It does not replace one. The strongest evidence comes from studies conducted in bodies also receiving adequate sleep, physical activity, and a diet rich in vegetables. Without those foundations, thymoquinone works in a compromised environment. Heating the oil. Thymoquinone degrades at temperatures above approximately 120 degrees Fahrenheit. Putting black seed oil in a hot pan destroys the compound you are trying to deliver. Always take it raw or add it to food after cooking, never during. Right now, your body is not waiting for permission to begin healing itself. Your stem cells are actively attempting to repair tissue. Your immune surveillance is scanning for abnormal cellular behavior. Your anti-angiogenic pathways are working to prevent blood supply from reaching any microscopic precancerous cluster. These are not capabilities reserved for people with perfect genetics or exceptional fortune. They are not functions that belong only to younger versions of you. They are active, ongoing biological processes happening inside your cells right now, and they respond to inputs. They are shaped, measurably and documentably in peer-reviewed published research by what you choose to put into your body every single day. The forgotten seed described today is not magic. It operates within the laws of biochemistry. What it does, with a consistency that over 2,000 peer-reviewed studies now support, is provide your biology with a set of molecular tools it is extraordinarily well equipped to use. The seed is Nigella sativa. Its active compound is thymoquinone. The research is verifiable. The protocol is specific. The decision is entirely yours. You now have the information. What you do with it belongs completely to you.